Welcome back. It's exactly 11:35. We are now going to be talking with Valdi Venter about the new rules and bylaws for CCTV cameras. Valdi is an expert technology solutions. Rather, she is an expert, and I think that is what her company is known as well. Little confused here. Good morning. Welcome to the program, Valdi. Am I
Hi,
saying your name correctly?
Valdi with a V.
Valdi. Okay, there you
That's
go.
that. Yeah, like
All
like
right.
Vivaldi, but I have nowhere near as much talent.
You are very talented, believe you me. When I look at what you've achieved, just very quickly, you have had an extensive IT focused career, of which almost 20 years was in the US. And then
That's
you
right.
obviously describe yourself as an education enthusiast and tech entrepreneur. Entrepreneur. So I guess it's no surprise that we're talking with you today. And of course, whilst you were also in the US, you obtained a BSc in Information Systems Management from New York University and an MSc in Innovation and Technology Entrepreneurship from the University of Massachusetts, and the list goes on. I can't go into all of that, but congratulations on all of your achievements. Wonderful to
Thank
be
you.
talking with you today, but I can also say all of that's gone over my head. But be that as it may, let's talk about your experience with CCTV, your current involvement with the business that you are in, Expert Technology Solutions Pty Limited, and having said that, do you spending so much time in the US, do you find that we here in South Africa are on par with the rest of the first world countries, or are we lagging behind adopting new technology?
It's a mixed bag on that answer. There's a lot of things where we certainly are a little behind, but I can tell you two areas where we're ahead is banking technology and
Wow.
definitely with security. We're way ahead of other people, and maybe that's almost
That
embarrassing.
comes with with the dire need of security in the country.
Exactly. Necessity is the mother of invention. So here we are. So yeah, when I came back, I didn't find too much different at that stage. But you have to understand at that point, CCTV technology was still pretty basic compared to what we have today. You had, I like to call it a reactive system. So a company would spend a fair amount of money putting up a surveillance system, and then nothing happens unless there's actually an event. And when there's an event, then it's like, oh, let's see if we have footage and could we potentially catch the perpetrator. So you spent a lot of money on something that you may need at some point. So that was the early technology, and also the even the legislation around that. I was quite surprised to find that South Africa has no CCTV or security specific legislation. And at that point, it was a bit of free for all. You kind of put cameras wherever you felt you needed them. And then as we progressed, the Poppy Act came out. Now, Poppy was originally legislated, I think it was about 2013, but it only came into being in about 2020. So what we did is we looked at things like the Poppy Act and also the RICA Act, which talks about transmission of media. And the Poppy Act, as we all know, talks about personal privacy and security and stuff like that. So looking at those things is how the industry sort of figured out, like, where's the line? We can do this, but we can't do that. It wasn't due to any specific CCTV legislation. And it wasn't too much of an issue because early technology was, again, very basic and very reactive. It's only in recent years that it's gotten so much more advanced.
So now that this new ruling is in the pipeline, you mentioned the very important issue, and that, of course, is the Poppy Act. And I'm kind of wondering, how does this tie in with the supposed new legislation? Um, Because really it's about my own personal safety. If I've got CCTV cameras around my property, it's for the safety of my family and myself, and hopefully to prevent trespassers on my property. But so that's the one area of thinking. And then we need to look at the thinking around industry as well, businesses, small, large, and industries as well. Um, are there specific rules and regulations? You have indicated that initially, it was between the RICA and the Poppy Act that people kind of, danced around to be comfortable in that space.
Exactly.
How and what are the implications of the rules? How do you believe they're going to change? Are they going to be drastic? Does it mean that I'm going to have to dismantle my CCTV cameras all around my house? And the impact on my safety and security.
Exactly. Well, let's start by looking at why do people put cameras up in the first place. You described your home situation as a perfect example. The need for security, preventing intrusions, that sort of stuff. And a business pretty much has those same needs. We want to secure the perimeter of the business. We want to make sure that there's no intruders. You may argue that a business also has the need to look at internal theft, because it does happen if you work in a warehouse or that sort of environment. Theft does occur, and cameras can go a long way to preventing it. So, looking at the original guidelines, if you want to call it that, that Poppy Act gave us, let's run through those quickly, and then let's look at how does it affect the new environment. So, there's 10, maybe 15 rules, depending whose list you look at. But basically, what you had, number one, CCTV could only be used for legitimate security reasons, such as crime prevention or intrusion detection. So things like snooping on your teenage children, not allowed. You have to inform your neighbor, and that is the case whether it's a business or whether it's residential. You have to tell the guy next door that there is a surveillance system on your property. And obviously, for your own protection, not just a verbal, hey, neighbor, by the way, you need to actually have some sort of document on that. Thirdly, your cameras may only monitor your own property, which can get a little tricky if you're looking at a boundary wall or at a gate entrance. There can very, very easily be a view over the wall. If you put your camera in a position that it views along the wall, you're by default seeing what happens on this side. Not a lot, but there is some view. So you have to be careful of that. Now, in a business situation, the business next door might be quite happy for you to be putting some extra eyes on their property. Residential, probably not going to be happy with that at all. Number 4, if you've got cameras that overlook a street or a sidewalk or even your driveway, anywhere where the general public can cross the field of view. Now, a field of view is the view that your camera has. Could be narrow, could be wide, depending on the technology. Anybody that walks around in the background can typically be caught on that camera, and they need to have some sort of notification that the camera is in existence. 5th item, you cannot have cameras in places where there is a reasonable expectation of privacy, such as a bedroom or a bathroom in a home. In a business environment, obviously, the bathrooms would be an issue. So even if you put a camera on the end of a passage that looks down the passage, if there's entrances to bathrooms, you have to make sure that the camera cannot see in the door. Then you're fine. As long as it cannot see in the door, you are completely compliant. Number 6, your system must only be used for the purposes of protecting your property. Now, that is something that the newer technology will obviously challenge, which we'll get to in a little bit. 7 is general non-incident recordings must be deleted on a regular basis. You cannot decide, well, I'm just going to buy another hard drive, another hard drive, another hard drive, another hard drive, and then you have footage for the last 5 years that is just random footage of people moving about. You're not allowed to keep that information indefinitely. The only requirement around that is there is a legal requirement, and this brings you to number 8. If there is something on your camera that must be disclosed to police or authority, so if your camera does happen to catch a crime, all right, that you are not allowed to delete. Okay. Ninth option, businesses that maintain compliance with the POPI Act typically should have either a compliance officer or also called an information officer. Those people would have been trained in POPI and would understand your business and make sure that you're compliant, not just with technology, but with your recycling, for example, shred the paper. All of that stuff fits in there. But those people, whenever they review what your POPI compliance is internally, they need to include what is your CCTV surveillance system doing? What is it monitoring? Who is it monitoring? What is the angle? All that sort of stuff that should be part of your annual review. The last item, number 10, businesses should have a clear and detailed policy regarding their CCTV use. That is including the purpose of the surveillance, how the footage is handled, archived, deleted, transferred, all of that sort of stuff, as well as the rights of individuals that are being recorded. What is your right if you happen to work in an environment, you work here, there's a camera there, you're literally working in full view of the camera all the time. What are your rights? So those are the laws, if you want to call it laws, actually the guidelines that we've gleaned out of POPI, and that's kind of what the industry is complying with right now. I do not know of any instances where there's been a follow-up with law enforcement to make sure that people are compliant. Nothing yet.
Okay, so
yeah.
Let me ask you this important question. Why now? Why the new CCTV bylaws by the city of Johannesburg? What are your thoughts on it, and why has it come about? I mean, aren't there more important issues to be dealt with? Because from what you've shared with us just now, it seems as if all the bases are covered, have been covered. Why go down this route now? And how stringent is this going to be exercised? How stringently will this now bylaw be exercised?
Those are really great questions. So there's a couple of things that have brought us to this point. There's firstly some advances in technology. One particular one that I should mention is a technology called ANPR. It stands for Automatic Number Plate Recognition. And what those cameras do, literally, as the traffic passes, snaps a shot of your number plate or your registration plate on your vehicle, and it can transfer that to a back-end service that connects to the police systems, and they can tell very quickly that's actually a stolen vehicle or it's a vehicle that was maybe involved in a robbery or something. So those types of advances are allowing us to do more at a community level. And the company that I should highlight that is certainly on the forefront of this type of technology is a company called Vumatel. They have introduced something called VumaCam, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners have seen these around. Just look at any traffic intersection. You'll find them popping up everywhere. Suddenly there's an extra pole, extra high, and on that pole there's a solar panel, and it runs 3 or 4 cameras on that system sitting at an intersection. So those are now all suddenly in the public domain. And there's already an extensive network that has been put down, not only in the city of Johannesburg. Our business actually falls under Ekurhuleni, and there are many of those cameras around. So what this allows people to do, and VumaCam is working with a security company called ADT in our area. Now, depending where you are, it might be a different security company that they've partnered up. So VumaCam or Vumatel is giving you the technology, and ADT in this case is giving you the security portion. They went live, they've been live for about 100 days on this system, and they have had already something like almost 60 arrests, more than 1,400 vehicle dispatches. They've impounded about 30 or 40 vehicles as well. There's even an article where they describe having helped rescue kidnap victims.
Wow.
So we can certainly agree that the technology is valuable. Now the question comes in when we look at legislation. I mentioned at the beginning, there's no specific legislation for CCTV. We're kind of relying on the POPI Act. So this is a good point. in time where the government should actually roll out some specific security, not only for CCTV, but let's just say for the security domain in total. There's CCTV, there's access control, there's electric fencing. All of these things could actually be addressed in a specific legislated act. However, they're not there yet. The step that they have taken is the city of Johannesburg has now issued these bylaws. So what does this mean for us? There's two aspects. The first aspect is, what does it mean legally? What do we have to do? From that perspective, it's pretty much what we've already been doing. You may not put cameras here or there. They cannot see into bedrooms or bathrooms. So those kind of rules are what they're incorporating into the bylaws. The only difference between then and now is now it is specific for CCTV, whereas before it was sort of adapted from the Poppy Act kind of stuff. So that is at least a good thing. They're starting with legislation. Yes, it's only the city of Johannesburg, but I can only believe that if this is successful and we iron out all the little kinks and we get it working properly, I can only believe that other municipalities are going to follow suit fairly quickly. So that's
Okay,
the legal aspect.
Okay, we need to wrap up. So let's look at two quick questions. What rights do individuals have if they feel their privacy has been violated by CCTV? Question number one. And if, and when we look at the old scenario versus the current scenario, are we as homeowners or business owners being disadvantaged in any way with these new supposed bylaws being introduced by COJ?
Well, let me answer that second question first. I think in terms of the bylaws, I don't think there's much difference. Maybe now there'll just be stricter compliance so that you cannot be that nosy neighbor that has the camera pointing over the wall. So from that perspective, I think it's a good thing, and I think everybody will benefit if we're held to a higher standard. That's always a good thing. I think there's a lot of questions that remain unanswered. For example, there's a lot of talk around all cameras that face public areas are going to have to be registered with the city. And some articles I've read saying that there's a registration cost. Others are not mentioning it, but they're saying there's a penalty if you don't register. So suddenly now there's an extra burden on business owners net with cameras. So I think that perspective, I think they have to maybe do a little bit more work. Making it difficult for people to comply doesn't help you. It and it upsets the balance. We're trying to get that balance between security and privacy so that everybody can feel secure and everybody can feel private. With regards to individuals, if they do feel that their privacy has been violated, the first thing they would need to do is check, is the company or the individual with the cameras, are they being compliant? Because maybe you as an individual are just not understanding the rules, right? But if a camera is facing, for example, you have one on your driveway facing out and people walk past there, so they could get caught on a camera. If you have a sign there that says this property is under CCTV surveillance, you as the business owner or as the homeowner are protected. You are not violating any rules. You're completely compliant. If that person has an issue, they need to walk on the other side of the road.
Okay, we need to wrap up, and I'm just kind of wondering how it's well and good that these bylaws are going to be introduced. I'm just wondering how it's going to be policed or monitored. A very quick answer to that, Valdi.
That's a very good question. Some of the articles I've seen says that only the authorities, such as the police, will have access to these cameras. Vumatel, I know, is arguing that security companies should also have access to that information. That information is going to have to be strictly Poppy compliant. You cannot take footage, download it, and put it on Facebook saying, "Wow, look here, we just caught this guy climbing the wall." That is a
and I see a lot of that. By the way, I'm seeing a lot of that in my neighborhood.
Yes,
So they
I've also
are
seen it going
actually
on.
they breaking the law.
Exactly, exactly. From my interpretation of the privacy, they are not allowed to take that media and then just transmit it publicly. Your obligation as the owner of one of those cameras or one of those camera systems would be to make that information available to authorities such as the police, or in my view, also security companies.
We're going to have to leave it there. I think lots more to unpack, but hopefully we will talk to you at a future day. But thank you so much for your deep insights on the matter. And of course, you are the expert from Expert Technology Solutions, Pty Limited. We'll talk lots more in the future. Thank you indeed. Go well. God bless.
Perfect. You too. Thank you, Julie. Thanks for having me.
11:56 news, mid-morning show. Oh gosh, I keep tripping up, don't I? Mid-morning show with me, Julie Ali. And the good news is that competition time is coming up in a little while. So let's go for an ad break. And I do hope that our competitors have taken a deep breath and they are ready and raring to go.